guess laws of physics don't apply there. A truck backed through my windshield into my wife's face. I hate when that happens. The guy was all over the road. I had to swerve a number of times before I hit him. Yeah, I can't even really comment on that one. How about this? An invisible car came out of nowhere, struck my car, and then vanished. It almost sounds like he was driving the DeLorean at that point. You know, even though we listen to some of those excuses, they sound pretty lame. I'm sure that in their minds they made sense to some degree, but when you step back and you look at those excuses, they really are pretty ridiculous. But these excuses are very similar in ways to the ones that we find in Luke chapter 14. See, Jesus is telling a very simple parable to a group of Pharisees that obviously stands on its own. It makes perfect sense, the parable does. But however, as we have seen in our series, in this desperate need of time. And so in verses 2 and 6, Jesus begins to question them about the law. Now, even though they were experts, they couldn't even agree and answer the most basic questions. Questions about caring for those who are ill or about those who are in trouble. They just looked at each other, remained silent. And then in the next passage, verses 7 through 11, Jesus challenges their commitment to humility. And through the use of a little parable, he points out that all their posturing for position, it means nothing really to God. And their attempts to always look good just reeked of arrogance and pride and discredits their little TV game show, pray for show, sacrifice for dough. And then in the next little section, verses 12 to 14, he reveals their motives for service. Jesus points out that genuine ministry is not done for the purpose of reward or payback. It's done to serve those who have no means to reciprocate the deeds of kindness and generosity that are done to them. And so the religious leaders listen to these challenges, and as they do, one man finally speaks out in an attempt to try to salvage what little bit of self-esteem he had left. So in verse 15, he basically says, "Blessed is the one who will eat at the feast in the kingdom of God." Now, to paraphrase his little effort to defend his fellow Pharisees, he's really saying, well, Jesus, those are great stories about helping poor people. Great job on those things. But, the real honor is going to be eating at the banquet at the kingdom of God, which, of course, we all will be attending. Now, you see a theme developing here through the book of Luke in chapter 14. The setting takes place at a table in the house of a prominent Pharisee. Jesus tells a little story about a guest who is jockeying for position at a wedding feast. Then one of the Pharisees brings up this feast that will happen one day in heaven. So those three examples leads to a parable about a great banquet in verses 16 to 24. Now, this whole idea of a banquet table has some pretty significant roots in the Old Testament that they were all very familiar with. Fighting right along with his earthly story is a deeper spiritual message, and that often goes unnoticed. And to truly understand that lesson, one has to consider